Well, okay, welcome everybody. Hopefully everybody's in to our 2025 how-to clinics. Are you ready, Alan? Oh, okay.
Are these commercials?
Kinda. Yeah. Well, you know, I'm getting paid today, so I gotta, you know. All right. So this was one of the things we added to our Christmas figure eight trestle that JT was talking about before our break. So next slide, Alan. Uh-oh, he's away from the. I guess I can do it. So, as I was saying, we wanted to have a little operational signal on our figure eight, and so I picked up a couple of these LGB signals over the summer, came up with a way to activate those. So, the things with these LGB ones, they basically use their switch machine type of solenoid to activate the signal, and so they just need a momentary pulse. So with just a momentary switch is how you usually activate those, and so if I'm going to have the train do it, I would need to have some way to just give it a pulse and not just turn the power on one way and the other way and leave it on. And then it has to reverse polarity to make the signal, like in this case it's a little semaphore, to have it go up is one polarity and go down is the other polarity. So I was kind of looking at this for in general use, not just indoors where we use it. So another issue would be how to trigger that signal outside and then resetting the signal after a fixed period of time. Okay, so next slide. So there's a signal. It's up here also. You can see the activator, I guess is what they call that. And then LGB makes an accessory switch that goes on the end of that thing that adds some more contacts. So they use those for, like this particular thing, to do signals, or want to have it power the track as the switch goes to the siding or something like that. You can do that. So that just snaps on the end of that LGB switch motor. So next slide. So I talked about these relay modules and timers last year at our clinics. So if you're interested, you can go back and pull that one up. Those are all on our website, by the way. So this relay module, it's got a built-in timer, and so this particular one I'm using just for set to 1 second. So when I trigger it, it gives a 1 second pulse, and then it opens the relay back up. So that gives the pulse to the signal switch machine to actually activate the semaphore. Okay, next slide. So this is a little more detail given it the momentary pulse, and so like I mentioned, it has to reverse polarity in order to make the semaphore either go up or go down. So it's got to switch the plus and minus back and forth. So in order to do that, you need a double pole, double throw relay, or a switch. In this case, it's a relay. And so that kind of shows the wiring there. If you follow let's just take for example the red wire there. So if we follow the red wire off of the power source, comes around to that contact. When the relay is not energized, the switch contact is in that up position. So you can see the red continues on through there, comes over to that, this is the switch machine activator over here. And then this one comes down, but it's just not going to anything right now. When this relay gets energized and those two contacts go to the down position, now if you follow that red wire, which is the positive, comes through that upper contact, but now it's coming down through that lower connection, and the net result is it reverses the polarity to that activator motor. And so that makes it switch the other direction. So what this doesn't show right here is that if this was the whole circuit, then that would just be providing power to it continuously, which is what we do not want to have happen, because that'll just burn that solenoid out. So next slide. All right, some ideas I had for triggering this outside, which is where most of our trains are. You could use a light sensor. I've got a couple of these set up down at the cannery. They're inside, but they're an LED, so they're really not affected by sunlight, and they shouldn't be. And these particular ones I got online, and they're all sealed, they're weatherproof and everything, and so you just basically aim them at each other. One of them's the LED and the other one's the receiver. There's another one right on the other side there. It's kind of hard to see. But then once they're aimed, then that little indicator inside there tells you it's lined up. And then when the train runs through there, it just breaks that beam, and then that's got a relay contact inside there that triggers it for you. Those things work really well. I've got those on, like in this particular case, that's one of our semaphores there, and I've got those same sensors on our gondola system that goes back and forth. Another possibility would be a magnetic switch. So if you go to the next slide. Okay, so this was, I've got individual ones. So this, there's the information on that light sensor I was telling you about. The manufacturer is SICK. Those are the part numbers. Should work outside. You could put that inside of a little house or a building or something if you wanted to use those. I mounted those at an angle to the track so that it doesn't get a whole bunch of pulses as the box cars go through or whatever. So if you get an angle, it's going to just kind of, it still breaks a little bit, but it's not as much if you have it at an angle. So then it's kind of looking like this way, so it's going to be more of a continuous signal instead of a whole bunch of choppy signals. Okay, next slide. So a magnetic switch, this would be another possibility for outside. Those burglar alarm switches, you can get those, lots of different places. Those would be another nice sealed idea. Downside is you have to have a magnet on something, so you'd have to get a bunch of those little magnets to have them on all your locomotives or on your cabooses or something to trip the signal. Another possibility would be a Hall effect sensor. That's basically also another magnetic type thing. That takes a little bit more interfacing to work with that, but basically when a magnet gets close to it, that will cause that sensor to close, but you need some interface with that. And then the third one would be a reed switch. I used those things a long time ago in my HO layout when I was doing signals. I could just put those in between the rails and then a magnet underneath. Nice thing with these is all of them are weather tight, so don't have to worry about it being outside. But like I said, the downside is you have to have a magnet on the train. Next slide. Okay, third idea for triggering this thing would be one of these micro switches. Carl's layout they actually used one of these to trigger his wigwag out there, which it works pretty well. It's mounted right next to the rail, and they've got a little kind of a flap of metal so that when the flange of the wheel goes over it, it trips that switch. The only problem is that's not really sealed, so you might have some problems with that if that's out in the rain. So see how well that works. But if you got something that's kind of out of the weather, covered up a little bit, that might not work too bad, and it's very simple to do. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we figured out how to reverse the polarity to get it to switch from one position to the other and the momentary pulse. So now what I wanted to do was just have the train trip it, and then after a fixed period of time just go back to green. So the train trips the signal, it goes to red, it goes around, and then maybe like 10, 15, 20 seconds later it'll just go back to green all by itself. So another relay module. These little guys are pretty handy. I've got these all over the place down there. They're real easy to work with, pretty bulletproof, easy to set to anything from like 1 second to 199 seconds. Now you just have to figure out how to trigger it, which those different methods I was talking about with the switch or the magnetic switch, whatever. So I've got two of those. I've got one of them set for 1 second and another one set for like basically 20 seconds. And that's the one that resets it back to green. So next slide. So this was a block diagram of the system. So basically we just have a sensor. I've got my 1 second timer and then the reversing relay that has to reverse the polarity going to the signal up there. So there's changes the polarity there. And then the reset one kind of resets everything, so after the train goes by, it goes back to green. So next slide. This is a little more detailed schematic. I won't get into all this stuff, but this is basically the connection diagram. And I've got the actual prototype up here. You can come up and see it. I just wanted to get that in the presentation, so if you want to look at it later, you could try playing around with it if you want. Next slide. Okay, there's a close-up picture of the finished product in operation. So the one that I used, I've got a light sensor to trip it, which works okay inside, but if you got changing light conditions, that's not very good because when the sun's out, now it's getting washed out. And in fact, when we had it close to the windows, that was a problem. Because on a sunny day, it wouldn't work right, and then when it was dark and just had the lights inside that I had it adjusted for were great. So, all right, next slide. And there it is, mounted on our figure 8, which we saw. That's right at the intersection there where we heard the horn blow on that video. And I think that might be the last slide. Is that the last one? Nope, well, that's just the list of all the parts. Unfortunately, name of that, the one before Artronics. Anyway, they were a great place to buy those relay modules and stuff like that online. They were out of California. Those guys decided to sell the business. People that worked there bought some of their inventory and started up a new one called Artronics. That's where you can get some of this stuff now. Anyway, that's it. Any questions on that? Yeah?
Did you buy the LGB symbol new, or did you go bigger?
I got that at one of the members' houses. He had a whole bunch of them. I don't remember.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but you can buy these things online, brand new. You just have to look around at like Only Trains or RLD, I think, has stuff. The ones that specialize in LGB stuff, you can still buy all those parts. So, anybody else? Okay, thanks. All right, so looks like Ron's going to be up casting and developing a heavyweight passenger car.